Hi, it's Bram here from Fitting Comics and Collectibles, and we're on episode 2 of our podcast today, and we're doing Star Wars. So with me today I've got Hadley.
G'day.
We've got Vaughnie again, and myself, Bram. So we're going to talk about Star Wars. It's probably for a lot of people a jumping off point for their pop culture collecting, whether it's action figures or comics or trade paperbacks or even collecting the movies, the DVDs, VHSs, whatever. For me, it was my jumping off point is definitely Star Wars. It wasn't the first one I watched. The first one I watched was Empire Strikes Back. And also, probably alongside that, I would have the Batman 66 series as a big part of it for me. But Star Wars, because it's such a big thing in the late 70s, early 80s, New Zealand, right through to the 90s, it was huge, right? 3 big movies. It really drove me to collecting the action figures, watch all the movies multiple times. Whenever it was available to watch, I would watch it. And then there are things around it. You've got sort of based on the same sort of thing. You've got Buck Rogers and Battlestar Galactica. Even not so much space related, but like even the A-Team or Street Hawk or any of those programs really from the 80s. You know, they're a big influence into people's collecting habits if you're into pop culture. So Star Wars for me was a big jumping off point. I didn't get to see it initially because 77 I was a bit young, but Empire Strikes Back I saw. It was the first movie I actually watched, and I think my father took me to see that in Auckland City. I think it's St. James Theatre or something like that. So Hadley, how did you get into Star Wars? Or how did you get introduced to it?
For me, it was always second hand. It's I was born in 81, so clearly too young to see it first time through. However, my brothers and sisters were living it. They hit for them at the right time. They went and saw it. They got all the toys. They got all the books, everything. And then as they got older, I kind of got given their seconds, and a lot of the figures that I still have theirs. So everything was that older brother, like, hey, they're into it, so they must be really cool. Yeah, and so therefore I must be cool for liking what they're into, so I'm going to jump in.
And also the cool thing is, right, being the younger sibling or whatever, you get these hand-me-downs, you actually get stuff and you have to ask mum and dad for it, like, oh, she got that. It's a broken arm, that's all good.
Yeah.
I can fix this.
Yeah.
Or, you know, and even if you've got brothers and sisters too, the cool thing is, you know, you get the cricket wicket and you can do lightsaber battles man hard, you know.
Yeah. So that was my introduction, and my best memories of it have been my mum used to work for a guy who had a hotel in Hamilton back in the 80s. He used to go to America and get a whole bunch of pirated VHS.
Oh, yeah.
And so he would bring it back and play it in his hotel. So, you know, like multi-screen, like one player per room type of thing.
Yeah.
And someone would ask him for a movie, he'd pop it on and, you know, it would go straight to the room. So he brought us back like these pirated copies of Star Wars, Empire and Jedi. Uncut, like they weren't broken up for broadcast. It was just just the full movie. And I still have them, and that was what I watched. Like every day after school, it was come home and it'd be like, what's it going to be today? Star Wars, Empire, or Jedi? It's probably Empire. Empire is my favourite, but like, that was pretty much my childhood.
Yeah. You still have the original VHS that you've got? Those
really?
Copies?
I do. I don't have a VHS or VCR anymore, of course, but still got them. Couldn't let them go.
It's funny you say that, like, you know, you're watching that, but you watch it any other day except for Friday, right? Because Friday was Asterix Day. Right, Vaughn? Run home from school like sprinting, and Asterix is on. I mean, it's a bit off subject, but...
No, 4 o'clock you had to be home.
Yeah, that's right.
We were a good half-hour walk, and then you muck around for half an hour after school, and then sprint home. And that was, straight into it. Yeah, it's
Star Wars for me. I was probably the same. I definitely watched Empire Strikes Back. It was the first one I actually watched, and seeing that battle scene at Hoth, I'm just like, as a kid, these massive mechanized machines. I know I'm getting off Star Wars subject again, New Hope, but these massive mechanized machines and this force of sort of ragtag dudes fighting this massively organized, you know, the Imperial army is coming and they're going to take it. They want to take the rebels out. They don't want any resistance whatsoever. And I'm just like blown away, you know. And then so later on when I did see Star Wars, I wouldn't say I was deflated by the whole thing, but Star Wars to me was a massively different story, right?
So hold on. So you actually saw Empire first before seeing Star Wars?
Yeah, well, because I can't remember when Empire came out, but I wouldn't have been very old. Probably that's maybe 7. I might have been 7 or 8. I can't remember when Empire came out in New Zealand, but I watched that. It was the first movie, so I would have been 7 or 8 born, right? I don't know. 75 I was born, so
you would have been about 8. I think.
Yeah, something like that, right? So I saw it then, and that was the first thing I saw, and I was like, on TV, I'd never probably watched anything Star Warsy.
Not even Battlestar Galactica.
No, I can't remember when it came out. I think that might have been a bit later. It might have been 83, 84. I can't remember whether Buck Rogers and Battlestar Galactica came on the same time. Can't remember. But I saw that, and I was like, whoa, spaceships and whatnot. It was Hoth and everything. That was Empire Strikes Back. But Star Wars itself, it starts, with Luke with his parents. And you get, sorry, that's not true. You get the first part where Leia's laying a message in R2-D2. And I'm like, to me that was very interesting because it had a robot, right? And I've talked about, the last episode I talked about Metal Mickey. And I'm like, yeah, this is a badass robot. Metal Mickey got curly hair, blah, blah, blah. And like Vaughn said, razor sharp curly hair. So I like robots anyway. And when I saw R2-D2, I was like, this is intriguing, man. This is pretty kick-ass. As a kid, I'm going, a robot? Sweet. Straight up, I'm like, I'm going to definitely watch the rest of this movie. So I started watching it. Leia's putting the message in there, and Vader's coming down the hallway, You don't get to see it as graphic as in the later movie with the flashback. What's it, Rogue One? You get to see that at the end, right? That is one of the best scenes I've ever seen in a movie on the end of Rogue One, where Vader is coming down that hallway and he is whipping ass. He's walking down that way. He's not taking any shit, and it's awesome. And
lightsaber glows.
Oh, with that misty look, Hadley, right? You see that, and it's like, this is. Well, I imagine it being kind of trying to be realistic to the first movie, right? I'm expecting to be a little bit more. A little bit more like that, I suppose, and not as much action. But when I saw that scene at the end of Rogue One, I'm like, that's a badass scene. That made me think Darth. I already knew he was bad and awesome, and the fact I'm saying bad, I mean awesome. But he was mega awesome at the end of Rogue One. I'm like, oh shivers, he's on a new level. And then he comes down. Anyway, so on the original, that happens, and then they get shot off on the pod, and the droids are on it, right? And then R2-D2 and C-3PO have a freak out. And then they get picked up by Jawas, right? They get captured, and it's this weird scene on like kind of not a farm, but what are they doing there? What's the thing? They were hydrating water or something.
Moisture farmers.
That's right. So you see that, and you're like, to me, I'm like, this is, it's a bit more hard concept to swallow. To as a kid, you're like, oh, what the flip's going on? It's all out of control. It's just a farm. Okay, there's some weird yellow blonde-haired kid here, right? He's got some robots. He's living this sweet life. I'm like, this guy's got 2 robots. This is pretty mean, right? They have the oil bath get cleaned up and whatnot. I don't know. Is that you? I mean, that's not the most important part to me of Star Wars, but seeing that in the beginning, I was like, it's really strange because I never knew about deserts. In New Zealand, we don't have any deserts, right?
That's a really good point.
So that's why I was like, strange to live in a hole in the ground. What the flip?
So this was totally a fantasy for you, a kid with his own robots in a desert.
2 robots.
2 robots, that's right.
1 gold.
Slave robots.
Slave robots.
You're like, I want a piece of this.
And he's like, how many languages C-3PO is it? 600 languages or more? I can't remember.
I think it's way more than that.
Yeah. So
ridiculous.
So he does that, and which always surprised me with the Tusken Warriors, right? You speak that many languages and you couldn't speak to them. They flipped out.
I don't think they were in a listening mood, Brad.
No, they were anger. They got straight up anger, mate.
So at this time, what else were you reading? Like, was this like a?
Oh,
so it would have been early '80s. So like, is this like pure, like post-apocalyptic robot fantasy type thing?
Yeah, to me, it wasn't even that. It was because the only thing I could read at the library, if you got there quick enough, right, Warner's Asterix and Obelix, Tintin. Only 2 things you could read at our library, and Glamorgan Primary Man. It's like those are the 2 most sought after things. They were thrashed. Because who's going to read like To Kill a Mockingbird or anything like this shit when you can go and read Tintin or like Asterix and Obelix or Fortress Flats? Some of they have Fortress Flats in there. But anyway, so that's the beginning of that movie, and I'm just like, it catches you, you know. Even though I've seen Empire, that caught me. I'm like,
So wait, you watched Empire first, and then you went back to Star Wars. So
Yeah.
what did you actually think of Star Wars in comparison? Now that you actually know more about the
I didn't.
more about the story about how they got onto the ice and all that.
I think
sort
as
of
a
jazz.
kid, I didn't compare them.
You
Now,
treated it like two separate movies.
well, because I knew they were the same, but I didn't compare them because I'm like, I suppose now, obviously I compare them now, but as a kid I didn't. It was just, to me, in my mind, it's a separate movie. This is another thing. I knew it led on to the second one, obviously, but to me it's new. It's you've got a lot of Hoth, ice, right, snow. You've got a desert. I never really, I never knew what I knew what a desert was, but I'd never seen it in a movie properly unless you watched a war movie or something.
So that's real fascinating. You gave yourself a new prequel, like you.
Oh, in my mind.
Yeah, like the way it's.
In my 9-year-old mind, yeah.
Yeah, the way it played out, like because there are a lot of really heavy beats in Empire,
Yeah.
especially that affect the whole story, and then to see that, go through that, and then come back and
Yeah.
You
A massive
give them
contrast.
Way too much credit.
Yeah, there's way too much credit. So how about you, Hadley? What did you watch Empire first, or you watched it in actual chronological order, or?
I couldn't tell you what I saw first, but I knew that they were a trilogy. Well, 3 movies. They weren't trilogies back then. They were just movies.
Hey, I want to cut in. Star Wars, the original movie, was it just called Star Wars?
First release it was, yeah.
They didn't call it New Hope, or I don't know where this New Hope. I knew where the new trilogy it came to, but they called
New
it
Hope came out after Empire Strikes Back.
So when I thought they called Star Wars the original first movie. Did they not call it A New Hope? I thought it was called New
It
Hope.
is called. It was episode 4,
Yeah.
A New Hope. I can't remember if it was first released. It did release as episode 4.
Oh, did it? I didn't know that even.
Actually,
Okay.
on that crawl at the beginning,
yeah,
it
yeah.
does say
Oh, right.
episode 4, but I don't know if it said A New Hope back then or whether that's just been added for the later ones.
Okay. Because we it's digitally remastered ones.
Which I didn't understand. I couldn't understand why it said number 4 on there. I think I even had to get explained why it said 1V on there, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think you're right. It was when they started re-releasing it with Empire, and Empire had a subtitle.
Yeah.
They started to reintroduce, or I suppose introduce the New Hope subtitle.
To put it in order or whatever, yeah, for the concept. So sorry, so you don't know what order obviously went in, but you knew it was a trilogy. So you're already ahead of me straight away. I just watched 2 and then 1. Awesome.
Well, like I say, I had them on tape, so I
Yeah.
I didn't have to wait. There was no
of
period
course,
in
yeah,
between. It
yeah.
was just like the longest period I had to wait was for one to finish, and then eject and put the next one in. That was the longest
I'll be all
period.
scratchy though. The lines in the name.
Oh, it was terrible.
Jeez.
But so good.
Yeah.
So good.
And then Bram jumped to episode 6. straight away.
Why is this weird alien swimming underwater and he makes no bloody sense, eh? No, it's not true. Okay, so for Star Wars, do you have any any really memorable scenes or scenes that you could watch over and over and over?
Quite a lot.
Really?
Most of it, to
Okay,
be
yep.
honest. Seeing the first Star Destroyer,
Oh yeah.
pretty timeless.
Yep.
Death Star, lots of great stuff in there.
Oh, even the destroyers are. They're so. You know what's good about them? You look at them. Someone's put so much effort into layering them and making them look bigger than they. I mean, they are big when you see them in The Force Awakens, right? And she goes scrapping. It's massive. Like she's like rappelling down the side one. It's massive, dude, on the inside, like a big superstructure.
Just that first opening scene of Star Wars.
Yeah.
After
Yeah.
that crawl, which to me,
Yep.
to be honest, when I was a kid, I never really read that beginning stuff. I go, oh god, I've just come. I'm sick of school already. But then when it opens up and it's got that massive, what is it, Star Cruiser or something like that coming out over the dark stars, and then all of a sudden you do have explosions inside.
Yeah.
And then is that when Leia is feeding the R2-D2 with the message, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's actually pretty good start to any movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
It catches you immediately,
pretty
right?
powerful.
It catches you immediately, like.
Absolutely.
I love seeing the tip of the Star Destroyer as it enters the
That's
frame.
exactly what
And
I
then
mean,
it just gets bigger and bigger, and you're like, whoa. And then
Yeah.
it gets bigger again, and then once you think it's going to stop, and the engines kick in, and you're
creates-
just like, wow, that's epic.
Visually, it's huge, and like the actual ship looks huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sounds. Is there a sound that goes with that, or is it?
Yeah,
it
does. It does. It has a real eerie sound. Like everything's quiet in the background,
and
but
then it starts to build.
it's like something sliding through air. Like it sounds like that. You know, the more amazing thing is all those like handmade models, right? That's all handmade. Like when I even see it now because
it still looks believable.
Yeah, I'm used to
totally.
CGI, right? I look at it now. I'm like, even when you see X-wings flying through, and even when you see any type of spacecraft, A-wings, Y-wings, whatever flying, snow speeders, everything. You're talking about a model on a wire going in one particular direction.
Shit's all over Avatar.
Whoa. But I mean, that's another thing that I like to talk about, because I'm like, when you see them doing it back in the day, and there's a picture of George Lucas here and a couple of dudes that build models, and like they're doing a scene from Star Wars, you know, X-wings and TIE fighters. You're like, how do they even do special effects? It's like, that's all handmade models, dude, and they're made to a certain scale. I can't remember what the scale was, but you can't tell, even when he's flying through the trench and stuff like this. You're like, it's insane.
Yeah.
There's no GoPros, there's none of that. Like,
to be honest, there was so much I didn't actually understand in the first Star Wars. Things like when they actually buy those R2D2 and R2D2 and C3PO.
yeah,
The Luke's uncle does.
yeah.
I don't understand why they didn't run away straight away. It wasn't until years after I watched it that I realised they've actually got a bolt on there.
The restraining bolts.
A restraining bolt. And it's kind of, it's only briefly spoken, like one sentence. Oh, I'll just take this restraining bolt off here, so then I can get access to the message. And then he pisses off straight away.
Well, I can't even. This is blowing my mind, so I didn't know any about this. That's the first time I ever heard of it.
You call yourself a nerd?
Oh, I don't. I mean, I'm very broad spectrum as far as nerddom's concerned, but I'm like, that blows my mind. So that's why they didn't run away. They actually have like
A
a
restraining bolt, wasn't it? That's
Yeah.
what you said.
holy Moses.
Where it's actually a little attachment they bloody weld onto their side or something, just to stop them from running away.
And which comes back to the next couple of scenes where they have the oil bath, and
Oh yeah. I
and
do
Luke-
remember this.
you know, the Luke removes the
And he sees the
restraining
message.
bolt,
Yeah.
and it's removing it that led him to escape,
Yeah.
and then go and find Obi-Wan
They
Kenobi.
have to chase them through the desert.
Yeah.
But you're right, the way that they talk about stuff in that movie, and you know, the actors don't know what they're reading, let alone what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But the fact that over time you can kind of like get an idea of all these little things they
So
throw
much
out.
built into the script that just didn't need to be they didn't explain it like a normal movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
it
right.
was just part of the world at the time, and it
Yeah.
wasn't even until, like I say, years down the track that I realised what the hell was going on with most of it.
And so your most memorable scenes though from Star Wars, Hadley, to get back to like just name say 3.
Okay.
Because there's quite a few good ones. But,
I'll give you that. First time I saw a Stormtrooper,
oh yeah,
that's
shit
pretty
off.
cool.
That's
Like
pretty awesome.
you're like, that dude's pretty rad. I want to
Yeah.
be that dude.
When's the first time you see it? Is it when they go to the cantina? They're just on their way.
When they capture,
Oh, sorry, yeah, right at the beginning, right?
the rebel ship, and
Yep,
they
yep.
burst open the door,
Yeah.
shoot at those dudes who had no chance,
Yeah.
and then they just pop out the door and they stand there and look all badass. You're
Yeah.
like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah.
The Falcon escaping the Death Star,
Yeah.
probably one of my favorites.
Yep.
The fact it was flying flat through space and they had like 2 gunners and
Yeah.
they still managed to destroy.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
there was no spinning or
Nah.
flipping or
Yeah.
evasive maneuvers.
Dude,
But
like,
that there's a video game aspect to that which I really
They were
like.
too busy
applied.
designing the restraining bolts to script that.
Yeah.
What's that? What, hey, it's that fast. How far does it go in 12 parsecs? I can't remember what the run's called. The something run.
Kessel Run.
Kessel Run in 12 parsecs. And it's not. It's a unit of time. It's a unit of distance, right? Not time or something.
Distance,
Yeah.
not time. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Yeah, to interrupt.
Which is why they give them the weird look in the cantina. Probably because like these
Yeah.
are all words they don't know, so they're
Yeah.
probably just them actually reacting as people. But yeah,
Probably what
the
I'm-
idea was that he bluffed his way through this
Yeah.
conversation by
Yeah.
going, "I can do it in this distance," and you're like, "What?
Hey,
That's not even possible."
Yeah, and that's a normal distance. Thanks very much.
Like we just want a regular taxi.
yeah. Oh, that's good.
But yeah, my other probably the one I watched the most and would probably skip to, fast forward, would be the attack on the Death Star and just the formation of X-wings and Y-wings, and I could watch that over and over and over.
That thing where he like looks at it, where it's got that 80s video game thing where he goes as the ball going into the hole. He's like, I can't use this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just do it by feel or the force or something. And he's like, does it without that in the end. I'm like, that was pretty rad what you already had in front of you, dude. As a 9-year-old, I'm like, don't use the computer, man. It's doing it for you.
It's only the size of Womp Rat.
Yeah, exactly. It brings me back to is it the Family Guy Blue Harvest when he tells that story and he's like, we've got to. So this star's impenetrable, right? Yep, absolutely. And he goes, except for one exhaust port. Sorry, what was that? Nothing. No. You said it was that's the exhaust port. He goes, ooh, we can have that fixed in a jiffy, man. If cost is no problem. Yep, no problem. It's like, oh no, get estimates. You know, we could put some ply over it. Ugh, that'll look horrible. But you know that there's so many things that come back to Star Wars, you know, and because it's been so long since you've done it, there's so many references to it, so many memes, so many everything. The thing though too, especially when you've got that, Darth Vader, the dark side, and the rebels, you know, the rebellion force and stuff, is that as a kid you look at it and you know you're leaned into that perspective straight away, right? These dudes are bad, these dudes are good. Even when you go into, like, you see them, they go into Tatooine, right? They go to the checkpoint and they've got the droids in the back and they're like, they stop them and they're like, these are not the droids you're looking for, as everyone will remember. And everyone's like, these aren't the droids you're looking for, uses the Force. And the Stormtrooper's like, yeah, these aren't the droids you're looking for, go ahead, go past wherever it is. And all those sorts of things. You just know innately as a kid, those dudes are bad. These dudes are good. That's the perspective you get, right? Because as you get later on in life, you could go, these guys are just trying to get order into the fucking universe, and these other guys are ruining it. They're a bunch of dicks.
Yeah.
But
some would call them extremists.
Yeah.
Some would call them
exactly.
terrorists of a global scale.
Yeah, exactly, right? Or a universal scale, right? They can do this. It's like, but I have a couple of favourite scenes, and they're not necessarily super serious, but the first scene, obviously, which we all agree on, is amazing. It captures you immediately as a 9-year-old or an 8-year-old, whatever you are at the time, and it just gets your focus. And you got robots. You got this bad dude in black who can choke people out with his mind, and you got stormtroopers, look like, real badass mechanized troops and stuff. And then the second best scene for me is Obi-Wan wandering down with this massive cloak on, going like this, scaring the Tusken Raiders.
Arms waving.
I'm just like, as a kid, I'm going, what's going on? Where's this dude, man?
Have you found out what he was doing since then?
No, I just still don't. I just see this dude, the arms. There's no hands coming out, so it's just these little black holes. Tusken Raider goes, whoa! He freaks out after he's just trying to beat a dude to death. I'm like, you're scared of that guy? He's just a guy in a cloak.
You obviously know why. That was
you tell me. You tell me, Hedley.
I actually don't know, but I have seen that in the later they've changed that scene about 5 times in all the later releases of the movie. I don't know why though.
I'm with you. Like I do find it funny that he was like just a crazy old man that walked upon these guys, and they're like, "Oh no, I don't want any of this. I'm out of here." But so he was mimicking like a roaring of a local dragon. I think it's called the Crate Dragon.
Okay.
Which is like where it would live in the area that they were, and so he was like, see, they would have seen him.
Yeah.
Making the noise, but they heard the noise and were like, no.
Yeah, they definitely heard it first. He didn't actually look.
That's right.
He just heard the noise and then he upped and buggered off.
Because then that would just be weird if some dude was just like roaring it.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, dude, you don't have to do this. You can just make the noise and they're going to go away.
To be honest, I'd find that more frightening. If somebody on the main road was coming at me like that, I'd piss right off.
Like, that's one of my favourite parts because as a kid, even though I thought then that was comical, like, why are they scared of that guy doing weird noises when, like, he's already kicking the shit out of this other guy on the ground with the 2 droids watching? I'm like, this is crazy. Anyway, The next part is Greedo and Han Solo's sort of debate, when they're talking about Yo Jabba money, right?
Yeah.
I really like that part, and I don't know why it is, just because Greedo is a character. I think the colours, he's so green, he's nearly fluorescent, and just his uniform and everything, and their discussion on there, and then Han shoots him under the table, and it's like, I suppose, yeah, because someone gets shot for just trying to wrangle some money back, and it's like, it's a debt, dude, don't shoot people. Because we don't know Greedo was going to shoot him, right? Even as a kid, I was like, why did he shoot that guy?
Yeah, and they
Totally.
did try to change that in the later scenes.
Oh, really? Okay.
You didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that either.
That's like a whole thing by itself, right there.
Yeah.
They did a terrible version of it where they made out like Greedo tried to shoot Han first.
Oh.
Whereas
They
in the original-
changed it to that, did they?
Yeah, so original
Yeah.
is Han just goes, well, you see
Shoots
the situation is, and just gut shots him. And that's it, walks away, which is perfect, and that's all that need to be done. And then in the later ones, when he went back and tried to, put all this extra shit in,
Yeah.
they made out Greedo trying to
Drew
shoot first,
Oh, okay.
so then Han Solo was actually
Yeah.
defending himself.
Yeah.
Bit ridiculous.
But anyway, the thing is, as a kid, I loved graphic violence. I'm like, well, he wasted that guy for nothing. That's awesome. And
yeah, they didn't need to change it, did they?
yeah, I thought it was perfect.
Getting back to like my younger brother, older brother type of thing, like watching those films, and it's interesting that you've chosen scenes that are real character-driven scenes, like with people.
Yeah.
All the ones I've picked have just been like robots or like vehicles.
But they're also in their own essence. They're also like complex scenes, right? That it's like they give you these new characters. They give you a new perspective of
But
something
the funny
you've never
thing
seen
is
before as a kid.
that all of those spaceships, all those sort of things that you chose, they are equally as much of the character of Star Wars.
Yeah.
The Millennium Falcon is part of.
That's
character
iconic.
as-
It's
Yeah,
iconic,
yeah.
right? Absolutely iconic.
Well, yeah, like with the Luke and Han Solo thing, like growing up my age, like I was always Luke because my older brother was always Han. I could never be Han Solo. I was never cool enough or old enough or brash enough to be the guy that just cold murders someone in a cantina. I was the.
You're the
I was
sister
the. Yeah, that's the me. Proud of it.
Yeah, absolutely no problems.
But yeah, that is such a really poignant thing. Is that
Yeah.
he's like, this is going nowhere. You're going to get me killed, or I'm going to be shipped off to go see Jabba the Hutt. So I'm taking you out. And then he just leaves.
Yeah. Well, he's got an appointment. Yeah. He's going to go pick up these clowns and take them halfway across the universe.
So my third one that I really like of that movie, which is iconic obviously to me, is him jumping in the X-wing and going to help. I can't remember what the outfit's called. Is it the Red Wing or
Yeah,
I can't remember what they're called.
Rogue. Well, they weren't Rogue Squadron yet, but he was the Red Squadron.
Is Porkins in the first Star Wars movie?
Yeah.
Poor bastard. It's an absolutely apt name, but terrible in all of its essence at the time. But that part I always liked because the screen they have to shoot into, it always reminded me of like real 80s. I used to go to Cobb & Co as a kid, and they'd have the Space Invaders games, and you played them they were table Space Invaders games, and it just reminded me all the real Tronny type graphics, and you're like, I'm not talking. This is awesome, dude. It's so easy. Why don't you just push the button now? Done.
Real geometric, like blocky, lots of basic shapes, and
Have to wait for it to lock in, eh?
yeah.
Done.
What amazed me is how like rubbish the screen always looked in the cockpits, and everything else was like gorgeous, and you're like, you're using that,
No wonder he got rid of that crappy screen. But it's like, to me, that part, even before that, when they're being chased by TIE fighters, to see, dogfights in space with TIE fighters and X-Wings, to me was quite exciting. I suppose it's the same as like seeing car chases and everything else. To me, that was exciting. It's like, I've never seen a TIE fighter before. That is blowing my mind.
Totally.
Of course, I've seen stuff in Empire, but I see that, I'm like, this is, for a kid, I tell you what, my father would never be into space or sci-fi or anything like that, but he took me to see that, and I guarantee he enjoyed it. I guarantee me as as a kid, you'd be like, it's amazing, right? It blows your mind. But even as an adult, like, who's not really into that, he's a butcher or concrete worker or whatever it is, he's like, yeah, I'll take my kid to see it. I guarantee he liked it, because I'll tell you what, it has everything. It has everything, that story. It has a love story, it has action, it has drama, it has everything. But that particular part, that's my last scene that I really, really like, is, the dogfights in space, them blowing up the Death Star, and it's probably why I like Rogue One so much, in the fact that you find out that particular story tells you sort of how they got to find out a weakness, right, and make it and make it that way inclined. That's what's happened. But those are my three probably most favourite parts of that movie, and two of them are a bit ridiculous. But the last one is an iconic thing for me: the blowing up of the Death Star.
Have you ever, especially during that the X-wing attacking the TIE fighters on the Death Star, the escalation of the battle as things start heating up?
Yeah.
Have you ever wanted to blow up another ship and just sort of like float through its
it's debris,
and just let it wash over you and in a flaming ball? I certainly have. I've seen that in that movie and just like, that's just cold hearted. You just blown.
I think as a kid I'd love it, Hadley, but I don't think as an adult, knowing that you go through and there's actually pieces of entrail and stuff, and on my windscreen, I'm like, but what? There's no windscreen wiper in space. It's like
every time I drive through Auckland, I think of that.
human debris and blowing up stuff. I mean those are for me. Those are the three best things, I suppose, in Star Wars.
So a question for you. After watching Star Wars, you've actually told me that Empire is still your favourite movie out of the trilogy, though, eh?
Yeah, I think only in the fact that maybe it's nostalgia or not, because I watched it first. But I don't know. My favourite spaceship is the Snowspeeder. That's my favourite, and I think the best part of that is when they trip up the AT-ATs with the tow wire, the tow line from behind. They shoot from behind. Just things like that. They really, it just resonates better than. I know that's an origin story and it's quite good in itself, but to me, Empire was just better in that particular fact. You found out there was a lot of cliffhangers in that movie too, But yeah, no, Star Wars is still a good movie. Like I could still watch it.
Well, it's a complete movie as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
because they didn't know there was a sequel coming out,
right.
so they did actually finish it. If nothing else ever came out, it would still be a really good standalone movie.
Because they said that, right? Like when you watch a couple of documentaries, they said
even though it said episode 4 at the beginning.
Yeah, well, that's true. So even I said to George Lucas, like he kind of did a lot of things, I think, on the download because I think a lot of movie moguls were over sci-fi. They were over space. They didn't really want to create anything else to do with that.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe that's a lot of things on secrecy and done on the download, because I know with the action figures they weren't really allowed to know anything about what the people would look like. They had to keep requesting images to find out what it would look like. And so when you're creating an action figure, it's bloody hard to do that. You'd want to know. It's usually released with the movie, right? Same as Star Wars. And I did mention it before, right, Hadley? They release like a stand to put your figures on, but you didn't actually get figures till about 4 months after the movie had actually aired in December.
And that came. They were running out of time. They did not have enough time to make that holiday season that year. So they thought, what was the best way to get around that?
And it's like, buy this, get your 4 figures later.
Yeah. We'll give you a promise, is what
we'll do. And it's essentially like a good. It's not a good marketing strategy, especially when you've got parents buying stuff for their kids at Christmas, right? But like, you buy this, we'll give you the 4 figures later on. Once it's on the movie, I tell you, there wouldn't be many kids that went, I don't want those crappy figures. That would have been like, holy, when the hell are they turning up, right? like we talked before, when you did a G.I. Joe, you bought G.I. Joe and you got barcodes, you sent away to get a free gift. And we did talk about this on the last podcast. But once you had G.I. Joe and you saw the figures were so awesome, you send away, you were like, I can't wait till this thing turns up. Regardless if you're going to be disappointed or not, you didn't know what it was going to be. You're like, this is going to be awesome. And that's I imagine what people were like when they bought the first 4 figures on the Star Wars stuff. They were like, once they saw the movie, they're like, oh shit, I can't wait till they turn up. And they turned up and they were like, yep, this is badass. Got them on the stand. I wouldn't have done that myself. I just played with them, but yeah, pretty awesome.
Get the double happies on them.
Yeah, blow them up. So Vaughan and I have come across a guy in town here where we live, and he's got some prints done by Ralph McQuarrie. And had never seen them before. They are insanely good artwork and prints. They're concept drawings done by Ralph McQuarrie, who'd done a bit of other work before. I can't remember offhand what it is.
Battlestar. He did Battlestar.
Did he? Yep.
Star Trek Phase 2.
Yep.
A whole bunch of other stuff from that genre.
Concept art. All concept art, is it?
Yeah.
Because he did he was contacted by George Lucas to do concept drawings for the characters of Star Wars, and I've seen Vaughan and I have both seen a few of them. We've got nearly a full set of the prints from what's the one we've got? It's not Star Wars, it's Empire Strikes Back, was it?
Yeah. And
you see concepts of, say, Chewbacca, or you see concepts of C-3PO, even Yoda, and they do not look anything. No, it might be Empire Strikes Back. They don't look anything like the particular character.
Yeah.
And I did see the other day on the internet, they've actually done a release of Ralph McQuarrie's sketches and action figures. So they've got Chewbacca, I think C-3PO, I can't remember the other ones. But
oh, that's what you were showing me the other day.
yeah.
They were.
It looks like a bat werewolf.
Yeah, they were in the 30th anniversary.
Oh, really?
3/4 inch.
Yeah.
They were really good. They based everything off his artwork.
They were the coin, They had a coin as well.
Yep, they came with the coin.
Yep.
Yoda looks really skinny. And
Yes,
a
bit
taller.
Chewie looks like what would become Zeb in Rebels. Like he's pretty much the same character.
They actually look very similar. Yeah.
The Han Luke character was kind of merged at the time, so he was. Oh, actually, no, it was the Han Obi-Wan, I suppose. It was like a bearded dude with like real 70s space, like straps, lots of straps.
Yeah.
Luke, I think, was a girl at that point. Vader had like really sharp, angular, weird helmet and stuff going on.
So,
Very cool.
Interesting thing about him, he was actually based on what he did. Is he actually did basically a samurai in space. He actually, like, his helmet was based, and you can kind of see it in his helmet, right? Like it kind of widens off at the bottom, slopes off, and it becomes very samurai-like. But they were like, when you draw it, you need a dude's essentially got a space suit, but he needs a different look, so he put the samurai helmet on it. It's not.
Who was the artist who did the Marvel Star Wars, the very first one? Because that's got Darth Vader in a green helmet. Really weird.
That's the Star Wars novel, which I really, really want, and I've missed out on an opportunity getting the Star Wars comic, the very first one, which was at Armageddon last year from a friend of ours, Jeremy, who owns Arkham Comics. I really wanted it. Some dude bought it, he saw it, and I'll tell you what, the lopsided helmet is drawn on Darth Vader, and that is, I don't know if you've seen it, Hadley, it is horrendous.
Yep.
But it's an iconic cover, right?
Yep.
It has Leia, it has Luke, it has Darth Vader. I can't remember if it has the droids on it, but it's pretty good.
It's that they're sort of stepping out of the page type of...
And he's in the background with the green and black
that's right,
shadowed helmet. And it's lopsided. One side's quite far and one side's far out. I don't know who did it, but it probably makes it better in my eyes, in the fact that it's not perfect. It's kind of... it's a very strange cover. But see, even those Star Wars comics, I don't know if you read the Star Wars comics, but they don't run in linear with the actual story. They're completely different.
Yeah, they go off on those random tangents. I had a bunch of the pink page, were they like the serial versions that you got? Like you got a couple of bits at a time. I remember having a folder of those.
Yeah.
The actual release stuff, I never really read at the time. I think I've gone back and read them.
Yeah.
After the fact, wasn't there a bunny at one point? The space bunny.
Yeah, there is. I've got him on the cover. I can't remember if it's issue 8 or something, and it's a guy I'd never seen before, and it's in the very early issues. I know that, but it's a pink rabbit with massive ears.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. I've just collected them. I haven't actually read them.
Star Wars story?
Oh yeah, but it doesn't run in line with the actual movies though. So even though it was released in, I can't remember, it was the early 80s, whatever it was. It doesn't run with the movies. Like when you buy Star Wars now, right, you can get Force Awakens. That actually reads really well. I didn't mind Force Awakens, and I read the comics. It's a 6-part series. It's really good. And I think they may have even done that with the next couple of movies too. I can't remember off the top of my head. But they read really well. But this is really strange. I've read a couple of them, and they're written very 70s and very 80s. Like
Yeah.
if you like that style of comic.
They were very much the continuing adventures, weren't they? Or
Pretty much.
So like the stuff they did in between the movies or the scenes,
Yeah.
or they would just happen to be here, so they would go and
And there's
do
also
random
like
things.
it's like a lot of the other books you have, right, with Star Wars. A lot of those written, and they're written in the sense that one's about the stormtroopers or their life as a stormtrooper kind of thing. There's a lot of literary stuff in books, for Star Wars, and so people can probably get a very different concept. If you never watched the Star Wars movies, say you were born in the late 80s or early 90s, 2000s, you may not even know Star Wars. I've never really met anyone who hasn't watched Star Wars, but there'll be a lot of people who do read, and they might like sci-fi and they've read it, that they might know anything more about the actual Star Wars universe, because it could be very easy to follow if you like reading books, just reading books.
Well, there's a generation of people who don't consider Star Wars, Empire Strikes, and Return of the Jedi as their Star Wars.
Yeah, cool.
They actually consider the prequels to be their ones, which surprised me, but it's just an age thing, isn't it?
So how much? When was the first part of the second set of movies? When
Was
did they
99.
start? 99. So it's a fair way after, right? 80s. Like, you're talking, 18, 19, 21 years after the original trilogy, you get a second trilogy.
Just a whole nother adult in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another complete generation.
Yeah. I've known people who, like, one of them has grown up with the original trilogy and met someone and introduced them into the prequel, and then they've sort of, have separate loves, but a shared love for Star Wars.
yeah.
Just,
yeah.
little less one and more the other, just depending on generational stuff.
Yeah.
I suppose that happens. It's a tricky one, that whole what is Star Wars and which is my version and which one's best.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suppose in the second trilogy too, you're getting a full run of, say, Anakin, and you're understanding who that guy is, how he becomes Darth Vader. Even when you get those animated series, you get the Rebels, and you've got Clone Wars. I mean, I really enjoyed Clone Wars. That was one of the ones I really enjoyed as an animated series. I didn't get into Rebels so much, but that's probably the thing we can talk about too. Like Star Wars itself, when we talked about at the beginning, sometimes it's the lead-in for pop culture if you get into it.
Totally.
You can leave it in the middle of your life. You can leave it into your late teens and 20s because other things come into action, right? Whether you're a boy or girl, whatever, you might start drinking, or you do this, you do that, you meet a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, and you sort of leave it alone. But then when you're more settled in your 30s, you can come back to pop culture and you never forget. I mean, I never forgot Star Wars. It was a massive part of my life, and Vaughan and I even went and watched, even when they re-released Star Wars with these extra added bits, which were terrible as far as I can remember.
They were bad.
I can't remember those Dewbacks being in the original Star Wars. Were the Stormtroopers being Dewbacks in the original Star Wars? I don't think they were.
They did one original Dewback, but it didn't move. It was like
It was sitting.
it was on Tatooine. They were looking for the droids, and it was kind of just off in
On
the
a sand
distance.
dune.
In the back
Oh, okay.
So like you could
Yeah.
like see him sitting on it, but
Because
it
they
wasn't
added
going
a
anywhere.
Not with them walking.
Not with
past,
them,
like- No, no.
yeah.
No, none of that.
Because they added a heap of those in the remastered
Yeah.
version of it.
Yeah.
Like I remember that going, what the hell are these things, Vaughan? And one's like, oh, these Dewback things. I'm like, I can't remember them, but like say if there was one originally, it might have been something I just didn't.
I think they
remember,
were always there in the background, like Hadley said, but it was just one of those things when it just seemed so overdone when I rewatched it. It just seemed too much. Just because they could do it, it didn't mean they had to.
Yeah.
It just didn't add anything to the story for me.
And that's a really good point you bring up. Like his creative process was very much take everything he loved, put it in a blender, and see what comes out. And most of what came out was rubbish, and it took other people to like rein him in and be like,
Good
you
point.
need more of this, you need less of
Yeah.
that. People forget that one of the Academy Awards that film won was for editing, and that was his wife. His wife was the one that like helped elevate things, change the tension, the pace, and sort of bring it together.
Just that different pair of eyes.
Just that different pair of eyes, and that whole notion that like creativity with some sort of restriction or boundary, can produce really, really amazing things. And you can kind of start to see that in the 97 special editions, which
Yeah.
they were the first ones I saw. Me and my friends dressed up and went to the cinema, got laughed at,
Awesome.
and took our lightsabers and, you know,
That's
sat
still
there
cool.
in the
That's
office.
still pretty awesome. I mean, if it's you know, if you're in America, you probably that would be absolutely acceptable, right? In New Zealand, with a not, I wouldn't say conservative, but like people who don't really get cosplay or they don't understand that type of pop culture,
This
it
was
would
the-
be
You
like,
were doing that pretty early on.
This was the 8 o'clock.
Whoa!
This was the 8 o'clock session at Mid City.
Oh, really?
You know,
Right in
there
the
were
Queen
6
Street.
of us. We all
Yeah.
had, you know, lightsabers. And
yeah,
we're like, oh, those guys are there for Star Wars. Awesome. Yeah, nice. Look at those guys.
yeah.
But we had a hell of a time.
Oh, that's the main thing, right? And now you have a good memory of it. You're like, I remember that time we did that, and people were like, what the hell's going on with these 6 dudes or whatever it was?
When I was much younger, I remember like, you know, you had toys or you had facsimiles of the toys that you could role play with and be like, yeah, I'm gonna have a gunfight or whatever. But most of my like childhood memories and role playing was like putting on a bathrobe, grabbing a they probably don't make them anymore, do they? Like a potato masher,
Yeah,
like
so,
the analog
the
ones,
rotors,
with the
yeah,
rotors and stuff
yeah.
on it, and like running up and down the hallway like I was Luke
Egg
Skywalker, egg beater,
Yeah,
that's
egg
the one.
beater, yeah.
And like, you know, on the way through the Death Star and like dodging into the bathroom and popping out and shooting stormtroopers and then judging back in and, you know, all these types of things. So that was cut that out. He said,
That is staying as gold.
yeah. Highlighted.
"I'll have you know I haven't told anyone that story, so I'm just keeping it amongst us."
I used to pretend
Oh, yeah.
I was the kid off Mad
Hey, you
Max.
don't have to worry about anyone else finding out because we only had 7 downloads on the other one. So you're pretty safe.
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars for me really just opened up my eyes to like fantasy and just movies and sort of that gateway drug to just all those other things that would eventually become pop culture and in every other respect. And toys was a big one.
Yeah, so merch itself is massive with Star Wars. You had the original, correct me if I'm wrong, Hadley, you got 12 back collection, right? Initially came out. That was done by initially a 4 set to buy pre-movie, and then you had another 8. And then it was 20.
And
You
you're
say
talking about
26?
figures, aren't you?
Yeah, you're
Like
talking
the
about the
little
actual
Star Wars
figures.
figures.
Was it 26 after that?
There were, yeah, so that
And then 64
that first,
and then 72 or
that
something
first 4, when you look at them, it was Luke, Leia, R2 and Chewie.
like that. Yep.
They were the ones that came in the early bird set. Like, there's no bad guys in there.
No, that's a sweet as
You know, like you get Luke, cool. You get a robot, cool. You get the girl, and then you got Chewie.
Yeah.
Not Han and Chewie. You just got Chewie.
Yeah,
So like that's a weird like
That
mix
is a
to,
weird mix, yeah.
to start your your play with, and then eventually the rest of them.
So then you got 12 back. So I've got the 40th anniversary edition here of it in the 6-inch figures, but it's showing Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia Organa, Ben Obi-Wan Kenobi, R2-D2, Death Squad Commander, which Vaughn alluded to. No one would have even wanted that anyway because there's hardly any reference to it.
It's a great
whatsoever.
looking figure. It's just
Yeah,
no
his
one
helmet
would-
looks ridiculous.
Yeah.
It looks like a walk upside down. Then you got Chewbacca, Stormtroopers, Jawa, C-3PO, and Sand People. Sand People was sweet as because like Obi-Wan freaks them out with his little routine as he walks down the
Well,
hill.
everything else is quite playable. It's just that
Yeah.
unless you actually had the Death Star, are you really going to need that figure?
Yeah, well, in saying that, I don't know how long after that was released. I mean, that cardboard Death Star, right? That's our friend had that, right? Our friend had that in the pretty much any other figure or vehicle you could have, but he's just really out there. If that's the original 12-back collection, that's quite out there, dude. A
That cardboard Death Star
Commander.
was only available in Australasia.
Oh,
That's right.
It's only there wasn't you couldn't buy it. In
probably
England,
good though,
you couldn't buy
because I've seen the construction of it. It's pretty shitty.
Yeah.
So,
So
I had one for a while.
yeah,
I got it off
you're so
a
lucky.
good friend.
But those figures, I mean, they were all solid. They did had how many points of articulation? 4, both arms and both legs, right, for the 12 backs.
some of them had heads.
Are they
Some of
swaddled
them
as
had
well?
head, yeah.
Okay.
Some.
So 5 points. It's probably not bad for a toy from the 80s. Although, when did G.I. Joe come out? Because they had heaps of points of articulation.
Around 1984 or
Yeah.
1980, maybe.
So they
a
had
little bit earlier,
hardcore
but
hip
they-
action.
They were amazing because you could actually.
Knees and elbows.
That's a different podcast, but man,
Yeah.
they shit all over the Star Wars
Yeah.
figures.
Whoa, I don't know if I'd go that far, but...
And we're leaving that bit in.
So the merge with Star Wars was exclusive, not exclusive, but it was quite wide range, right? You got all of the vehicles, you got all of the figures. You actually got battle scenes, even with Micro Machines, they did battle scenes, right?
Yeah. Well, don't forget, at this point in time in the toy industry, a lot of it was 12 inches or a 1/6 scale, like a G.I. Joe old-fashioned scale.
Action Man.
And Action Man, yeah.
Holy, he was badass. Eagle-Eye Action Man.
Yep.
God damn, that guy was awesome.
You know, and they were more
Still got mine.
like military recreation
original.
types things, whereas these were, you know, intended for kids.
Mm.
And so there's that great story. It was in the Toys That Made Us documentary as well about, you know, we want to make the ships and we want to make the figures, but how big are we going to do it?
Yeah.
And the guy just went, we're going to make it this big.
3.
And his finger, the distance
inches,
between his thumb and his finger was 3 3/4 inches.
Is that, and that became the standard.
And that became the
size.
standard size.
And there was no other figures out there before.
Wow.
that.
No.
That's
Well, the only ones that would have been close may have been like the Japanese Micromasters or, but I mean, even
Micronauts.
then, Micronauts,
Yeah.
but even then, like, they wouldn't have been enough around to be like, I want it to be that big. Without,
right.
you know,
So they actually physically
they
measured
measured,
that out.
they measured his
Built it
fingers,
out.
yeah, and they built it to that.
Wow.
So, and then that gave them the opportunity. Also, I think that was the time there was the cost of petrol had gone up, so that meant all the plastic costs went up. So they trying to make it,
Fabrication of them.
trying to make it cheaper, and that was how they did it. So because of that, they were able to make smaller scale and make the vehicles, which to me was a big part of the play.
But massive
Yeah.
part of it.
You know, you could get a figure. You might not have any vehicles, but your friend might have your figure and a vehicle, and you go around and play with his stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And then go around to your other friend who had everything, and you're like, why
But
am I
it-
friends with you?
But it extends.
Green-eyed monster.
It extends to other things, right? Then lightsabers came out. You could get a lightsaber. That was like, as far as an action figure is one thing, but to actually get a prop, not movie style prop, but it's a pretty cool prop. A lightsaber was a massive part of Star Wars.
Yeah.
I had a torch. That was my lightsaber.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Nothing beats a dolphin torch, right? Awesome.
Safer than an egg beater, surely.
Definitely.
So you got all this excellent merch with Star Wars. There was heaps of crappy merch. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
I seen some of the figures from the '90s. Power of the Force, I think it is, and they are built like Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Yeah.
and they look terrible. Because when you see the original Luke, and if you'd never seen him before, and you saw just the original figure, and you go, "I'm gonna watch Star Wars. This figure's rad." You go, "Whoa, he's atrophied a lot. That dude is not filling out that uniform whatsoever. Not like my Power of the Force figure." And not that they got it wrong. It was probably just a common theme, right, in the '90s to make things rip to shit. And
It's a really interesting thing because there wasn't any other toy lines out of that time that were that heavily muscular. Like,
they were it's like they borrowed it from another theme and
Yeah.
just ran with the body type and
Like-
just changed it.
like Masters of the Universe had pretty much been and gone, and you know, like was well outside of that period to be like, okay, we want Star Wars, but we want them to be muscly. They must have just thought, kids like muscly dudes. Let's make our beloved characters into muscly
I
dudes.
bought a Princess Leia one from that.
Was she
period of
ripped?
time that it looked like Caitlyn Jenner, mate. It was pretty hardcore. It was muscly. The face was
Had
so,
a beard.
It wasn't that bad,
But even
just the jawline, everything was really hefty on it.
quite
Yeah.
aggressive. Like her stance was quite aggressive too.
Yeah.
Like she was quite like her arms were quite wide.
And there's nothing
like,
wrong with making it look strong and powerful. It just seemed,
Yeah.
it just didn't seem right on that particular figure.
Yeah, but they come back around, right? They realise that you go into the 2000s and people become more aware of how things should be and like how more realistic people actually are. And you've got that figure there, Hadley, the Stormtrooper, right? And so when was this released? This particular
this
figure?
one came out in the last year or so. So this is a 3 3/4 inch retro collection Stormtrooper on the original style card back, but it's a modern version, so it's quite digitally damaged, and the figure itself is slight changes from the original, so you can't like fob it off as an original mint condition figure, but for a display piece,
Excellent display piece, man.
yeah,
I
like
agree.
you can look at it and be like, boom, I remember what it was like to have something like that. I don't, because I never had a carded one. I had the leftovers by that point.
Absolutely.
But you know that encapsulates for me what it would have been like.
So looking at this, I mean, to me, it's exact. The pistol is that was the thing with the original figures, right? The pistol. you wouldn't lose them, but mates were like, oh, I've got an extra one, and you borrow. But I'll tell you what, this figure, it looks damn close to the original. It has 4 points of articulation because the Stormtrooper didn't move, his head didn't move.
It was stuck.
Yep, and this looks exactly the same. The only cool thing about this is not yellow like your original figure is now because of the shitty plastic. It's actually way better than that. One thing I'll go back to, I just remembered, is I watched the... I don't know if you guys have watched Toy Hunter. You guys watch Toy Hunter? So, on Toy Hunter, on one episode I did watch, he had run into a lady who had an original collection of the original 12-back, a full set. I don't know if they were unpunched or whatever, but this blew my mind. The actual value to it is she went into this lady, and this lady collected 2 sets of 12-back Star Wars figures in 1978 or whatever, whenever they released them, and she kept them as an investment for her children. And her children went, I don't want action figures, just sell them, get rid of them. I don't need that. What do I want that for? Anyway, so Toy Hunter comes along and gets these 2 full sets of like 12-back Star Wars figures. And he's like, yeah, this is awesome. Thanks very much. I'll buy them off you type thing. It's not playing it cool, of course. And
sweating down his brow.
Yeah, like... just about. I mean, obviously, he is rough as all buggery, by the way, when you watch him actually on the program. But I think I can't remember what he actually offered her in the end. He might have paid her $6,000 for the full two full sets. So she gave him a couple of extra figures from the Empire collection as well. And they were mint in box. And they were all mint in box. She'd never, ever take... She put them in a box for her kids as an investment and never taken them out. And they said, no, I'm not interested. Don't just do whatever you like with them. And she ended up selling them for $6,000. So she would have made a massive gain on her investment anyway. He turned around and sold a full set to one guy at $26,000 US. A guy who was... I don't know what he was, an investment banker or whatever it was, but he was... I want to invest in some action figures because they never depreciate.
Was the buyer actually investing in them, or was he trying to get a little piece of his child?
No, he said purely, he checked into it and it was purely as an investment, I think. This is all from memory, I can't remember 100%, but it was not for him to keep, but as an investment, I'll just hold these.
Wow.
And it was a full set. I don't know if they were unpunched or punched, whatever. But
it'd be interesting to know the value now, eh? Because that Toy Hunter's what, 5 years old?
Oh, probably even more, probably like 10 years old. But he kept a full set himself and sold a full set for $26,000, whatever he paid for it. And I was astonished at that point when I watched it, say 5-6 years ago. I was like, holy, they're worth that much. Because you can pick them up out of the box, no problems, most places anywhere. But they still cost you a little bit in New Zealand. They're not easy to get hold of and in good condition and working order. But to be in box and the Viz pack and everything, and to
original
they were mint
on the card. I do.
Yeah, they were mint.
Yeah, I did see that episode, and it was amazing because she had kept them for so long, and they were full sets. It just seems a shame if somebody's just buying them, and only for an investment though. Oh yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I love thrashing the shit out. I know you would have obviously been handed it down from your brothers and stuff like that or whatever, and nothing beats having a good old play in the backyard in the dirt with your action figures. It's the best. And like Vaughan used to, because he's an absolute anarchist, he'd blow them up with double happies or whatever.
Yeah, I never got that far. Like, I got them dirty, but I wouldn't blow them up.
Actually, let's open up that one you brought along today.
But, like, when I saw the episode, I was like, that it's... I've always marvel at that someone would keep something in a Viz pack mint. Because as a kid, I just wouldn't have had the willpower. If I got it for my birthday or Christmas, I would just play with it.
It never occurred to me.
Oh, no.
I actually went round to this kid's place once when I was young. I remember this to this day. And all his toys were still in the box as he got them.
Whoa.
Even when we were, and I was probably 6 or 7 years old, and he had a Dukes of Hazzard General Lee still in the box.
Holy!
So how is that not outside, left in the rain?
Thrashed in the dirt.
And he had the common sense to just treat all his things like that even back then. I wish I had that foresight, but...
all the willpower. I mean, I couldn't, as a kid, it's like, every Christmas I could get anything else, but if I got a Star Wars figure or a G.I. Joe figure, I'd be like, yeah, this bad boy's coming out. He's getting thrashed today.
You get added to the battle. You're just thrown amongst the troops now. Except you might win one because you're the newest one. You might be like,
yeah, he might survive. It's hard to tell who's going to get a Purple Heart today. I don't know, but that's So it's just. I mean, to me, the just getting, even opening it, even if it was And we talked about this before, and it's quite funny. It's like, even if you were like, oh, I want some Star Wars figures, Mum, and you get the worst Star Wars figures ever, like the medical droid, I was like, I'm very disappointed. Not in those words, but this is not a Stormtrooper, which I like to have multiple of. This is not, if it was G.I. Joe, it's not Snake Eyes. I'm very angry right now, but I'll take it because it's a new figure. Right, I'll have the medical droid. It's fine.
Look, son, I got you Crazy Legs, all right?
Yeah.
The guy said Crazy Legs was fantastic.
Like, tell you what, if I got Gamorrean Guard, I would flip out. I would have visibly trying to attack someone because I'm like, I hate this character. He gets killed and it's fine. He looks like a pig with tusks and he's green. Why can't I have Luke in his black outfit? Why can't I have him with his mechanical hand? Why can't I have even got the Rancor? And Rancor, I'd rather have the Rancor, the handler guy.
Oh God!
Oh, for God's sake!
With that little head scarf.
Yeah,
thing
yeah. And he was a very emotional man. When Rancor died, he's like, "Oh, my baby," pretty much. He was just freaking out. I mean, to add an extra emotion, it was like, "Oh, that guy's cool." But like, I don't know. Did you ever have disappointment, Hadley? Did you ever get a figure and go, "Oh, this is a bit of a letdown"?
I'm sure there were many. I'm sure there were many.
Yeah.
You know, just going back to like the value of these things, I once spoke with an old workmate, and he couldn't believe how much these things are going for. Or you know, there was a story like the collection's going for $10s, $50,000, $100,000 mint on card, and then you start, you know, you unpack it, you break it down, you're looking at first 12, possibly a double telescoping lightsaber. You know, with these toys especially,
rocket firing Boba Fett.
Yep, they never,
because there's two versions I think of it.
Yeah, there's the J and the L slot, I think they call it. You know, like, and I had to explain it to him in car terms because he was a car guy, and I was like, so, you know, people are into action figures like you are into cars, right?
Yeah.
Thing is, when you buy a car, it depreciates immediately.
Yep.
You buy an action figure, especially Star Wars vintage mint on card, that's only going to get more value over time.
Yeah.
And especially, you know, you start getting into the finer details, and that's where the real big bucks comes in. It's like, the double telescoping lightsabers only came out on the very first run, and they were just the most tenderest of little pieces of plastic.
They looked weird, eh?
You looked at it and would fall off.
It was like a thin piece of plastic.
Super thin.
And that inside another piece, and that all went up into
an arm. It all
arm.
looked terrible because they're all twisted and bent when it came out.
Yeah.
It ended up like a needle. It didn't look like a saber. Kind of like a... But yeah. So.
They later replaced that. So that first version, the double telescoping, is worth much more than any other.
Are they the ones
release.
that came on the early bird special, are they?
I think they came separate carded as well, because there was double telescoping Luke, Vader, and Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
And those ones are easily the most expensive versions of those. You talk about Jawa, when they first released it, it came out in a vinyl cape. Then they realised
True.
It's a tiny figure.
There was a lot of vinyl capes though, eh? There was the Jawa, there's Darth Vader, Princess Leia Organa, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yep, they all had vinyl capes.
And they were very hard to get, because you can imagine in the 80s, right? That plastic and that vinyl is UV light. They didn't know enough about it. If you kept it anywhere near sun, that would just
deteriorate over time.
Melt it.
So then they thought, it's a tiny figure, we'll take the vinyl off and we'll give them a soft goods fabric cloak to increase the value of, you know, of a at the time would have been a $2.99 figure.
Yeah.
And it was those original vinyl cape figures that have just blown up. Still some of the most expensive versions because there's only so many going around.
What about loose?
Even loose. But even then that's a tricky one because people can fake the vinyl. So you kind of... There's that in-between part where people have taken loose figures, got them graded, put them in plastic again. And then, you know, they can command a higher value. But, you know, I said that to my mate who was talking about cars and like trying to give him an idea that like, this will be worth $100,000 at some point if you look after it. And he's like, oh, okay, I kind of get it now. It's like, you know, like just that different point of view. But I mean, and they'll never make those figures again, and they'll never be as popular as they were right then. And so those, however many hundreds are left in the world, are just going to be constantly profitable, valuable.
Absolutely. Well, it's like anything that drops off. It can be damaged easily, or you get floods, you get fires, you get theft, you get anything. All these things add to the whole pool of things coming down, right, and the value going up. And when you tell someone about, excuse me, you tell people about things like action figures, like, oh, well, that's for kids, right? And it is for kids. It's absolutely who it's aimed at, right? But there are people who are absolutely, they're collectors, they're completists. They need things, they need to complete their collection. They have a passion for Star Wars. They're going to collect, even if they're the 90s style, Power of the Force, they're going to still collect them and keep them in mint condition. Because probably not from the resale value of it, because people are just completionists, right? People don't understand people who collect comics, or they collect action figures, or they watch these movies and they have this pop culture. They don't understand a lot of the time. Their hobby is to hunt out and find these things that are very hard to find, that are very rare, and then get them and then complete that thing, and make sure it's a complete set. And then when you got a complete set, okay, I've completed that set. I've got all my photos of it. I can probably get rid of it now, right? And they find a new thing to do it to.
Yeah.
And it's huge, but it's very hard to find those toys from the 80s because it was such a new thing for a lot of kids. You know, you're not talking about tin soldiers or plastic soldiers from the 70s or 60s or whatever. You're talking about an actual articulated action figure in the 80s, space related, that's heavily played with. Like when a kid gets it, a kid cannot resist
that's
playing
the
with
point,
it.
isn't it?
Yeah,
They weren't for collecting back then.
No.
Yeah.
That's what makes them valuable in the packet now, because no one in their right mind left them in the packet. They just ripped them open, had them on Christmas Day. Nowadays, when you buy a toy, if you are into collecting, you'll never open it. It doesn't. It will never get that value.
Or you can buy two,
that
right?
Was just valueless.
You buy two, right? You buy one, and you can put it on the shelf, and you can buy one to keep it mint and leave it in a box in the dark.
You mean now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
but
but
people would do it now.
It still will never have the same value as something that.
Oh no, no worry.
Then,
no way.
Everyone was opening up. Everyone was opening up and playing it because they never thought to actually put it aside.
Absolutely agreed.
The insane ones.
Well, it's like
and then nowadays, when a lot of people will buy a toy, quite often it is for collecting. So they it'll never really
gains its value.
It doesn't gain that value as quickly.
Plus, mass production kills it, right?
Well,
it kills off its value.
Yeah, but I mean, shit, there must have been a ton of Star Wars toys being produced.
Yeah. I bet. But the thing is, they're not known collectability. Like when you get a comic from the 60s Silver Age comic or a Golden Age comic, they were like, this was just trash to read in between reading the newspaper.
Of them
chuck it away.
Was used.
Yeah, you just biff it.
And to your point there, like there were millions of figures made.
Yeah.
Across different territories, and what they were doing is they were licensing out Star Wars to different territories, and they were made by different manufacturers. So, you know, when it comes to the detail for a collector, it's finding which factory it came from, what version of the card is it on. So like you were saying about the Death Star, the cardboard one, that was the Palatoys, made in New Zealand, Star Wars product, fully cardboard, fully plastic, beautiful.
Made in New Zealand.
Made in New Zealand.
I didn't know that.
And same in the UK, the Toll Toys one were made there. I think there were a different one made in Australia, but you know, so you start really grinding down on all the different details. And I know people who only collect the New Zealand version of the cards or the New Zealand released figures, or some just from Brazil or or Hong Kong. Wow. These different places. It's not just for some people enough to have the figure. They've got to have the year it was made has to be a certain year from a certain factory. And
it's also expanded out to go to those rip-off versions, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I saw a multicoloured Boba Fett the other day. 5 different colours as Boba Fett packaged, and I don't know if it was a bootleg or if it was an original release of something, but it was a multicoloured Boba Fett, I think, or it was another Fett. I can't remember either or. In fact, action figure released. But it just shows you the follow of Star Wars, right? You get that people doing prototypes. They want prototypes.
Well, I think there's even just people who just want the Mexican versions
absolutely.
of Star Wars.
So you get
that's actually very valuable.
So you get the Empire Strikes Back, but 3 times. One in English, I think, one in Spanish, and then in whatever other language it is.
The tri-logos.
Yeah, triple logo, right? And you're like, and those collections. But even with Star Wars, even the later releases of stuff like the Black Series 6-inch figures, I found were massively detailed, hugely collectible, and hugely sellable. Like if you wanted to collect in the Wave 1 or Wave 2 of those particular things, and they're very, very late release, like say 4 years ago. Those things
gain value real quick.
Massively quick, right? The white Boba Fett prototype release. It was pretty easy to get. It wasn't hard to get. A lot of people had it. A lot of people took it out of its pack. It's probably because this will have no value. Everyone's going to have it. But then it went from being, say, in New Zealand, buying it for, say, around about $30 or $39. It released at about 39. You bought it, and then within about a month, it was like $100 New Zealand.
Jesus, it's exactly the opposite of what I was trying to say before. That's amazing.
Well, that hasn't happened often.
I wouldn't have thought that would gain so
like
much
traction.
traction.
The 3 3/4 inch figures, they did not have a following, but the 6-inch figures had a following because the detail was so good on them. Like even the Darth Vader went up for a long time; it was over $100, but you can get it around, I think now for $60-$70. The Darth Vader, but the Boba Fett, he stayed current, and only because I think he already had a high value. Because Boba Fett is a character a lot of people will follow. Being a bounty hunter, and he's pretty badass. Like, he looks awesome. The actual design of him is insanely good. It's one of the best designs for Star Wars, Boba Fett. But Mandalorian came out, and how good was that series? Like, Vaughn and I agreed everything on that series was good, apart from episode 4, I think it was, with some shrimp farmers in the middle of freaking nowhere. As you know what I'm talking about, Hadley, right?
Exactly.
And
it was like a Dr. Medicine. What is it?
Dr.
Dr. Quinn
Quinn
Medicine Woman.
Yeah.
That's what it felt
Yeah.
like. He comes in on an old wagon and he'd
Yeah.
say, oh, please stay on. I've got too much trouble.
Yeah. It's the first time he thinks he's going to take his helmet off and eat something. He doesn't even.
So you didn't like the Seven Samurai, like?
Like help them defend their own village and it's fine. I mean, but it's I kind of everything else has been so good up to that point.
Yeah.
So bounty hunter-ish to that point.
I don't know. It just didn't grab.
Because the next one was good,
and I understand what you're saying. The Seven Samurai's kind of idea to it. It just, I don't know. It just didn't seem to, because each of those episodes was written by a different person, and directed by a different person.
Yeah.
And to me, it was excellent. It's just that one that, to be honest, it was still a very good episode. It's just that it was such a good series that to me stood out as just a weaker one.
But in saying that, if you watch that just with no other concept at all and just watch it as I'm on a plane now flying somewhere and I'll watch this thing here, you'd go, this is good.
No, wouldn't have done it.
You'd watch it, Vaughn, and you'd love it. But it would be watchable. You know what I mean? And how good? I mean, I'm very, patriotic, but how good's the IG-11, Taika Waititi? That to me, he's like telling the Mandalorian at the end, like, just tell me to do my protocol base at the end, and I'll make sure the baby Yoda gets to here.
Yeah,
I can make sure it gets to there. You just tell me to do my basic protocol, which I've been reprogrammed to do by the dude who saves him, right? And he does it, and it's like, it's one of the best. The only thing I agree with you, Vaughn, the only thing I didn't like was when you get to see the Mandalorian's face, right? It should never have happened.
To me, it's kind of like a Judge Dredd sort of moment where it should just stay on all the time. I understand if maybe they would have finished it at that, if they didn't think that season 2 was going to be, a possibility. Okay, I'll give it to them. But because the season 2 is coming out, I think honestly they should have left the helmet on.
It's so much suspense, right? I mean, you knew. I tell you what, after episode 1, you and I watch it, and it's so hard to know. To believe how much actually happens in episode 1, but it's insane. Like the amount of action and the storyline and plot that goes on in the storyline, like, there's no way this can fail. It's definitely getting another season.
Yeah,
you could have guaranteed at the first. I mean, it's not how they write it, of course, but when you get part 1, you're like, oh man, this is definitely a second season. There's no way this can fail. This is so good, and it is. And I mean, we're getting off Star Wars a little bit now, but like, this is how Star Wars in the future is going to be. I think, Hadley. Like, it's not going to be movies anymore. I think it's going to be series done through Disney, perhaps. Like you get an Obi-Wan series, perhaps. Fingers crossed. Stuff like that. That's how it's going to portray it. That's how it's going to go into the future, right?
I think for me, like, it's quite commonly known that Star Wars fans are some of the worst fans, or at least the most toxic fans. Parts of the community
yes, they can be.
The most toxic. And, like, a lot of people upset with every new version of Star Wars that comes out because it doesn't match their ideal. I'm just happy there's new Star Wars. Like, there aren't many properties or films or series that have lasted 40 years.
No.
With, quality issues, sure. But the fact that it's still popular enough to create and have more, I'm happy. Like, there's going to be bad stuff, but... like, there are bad Bond movies, and that's probably the closest thing to a
there's bad Indiana Jones
series
stuff, and there's bad anything. There's bad comics, there's bad action figures, there's bad movies, and you can't always get it right. But sometimes when you're going for I don't even. To me, it only ever fails when you're going for the money. You're actually interested about what the fans want.
Yeah,
That's where it falls over a little bit. You know,
there's a lot of potential, risk that's what Disney had done with their new set of movies. Was they weren't really focused, or they didn't really have an idea or a plan, and that may have hurt them. But as far as I'm concerned, The Mandalorian is a great way of flipping the head on that.
Yep.
Immediately, they've done a great job.
Can I add to
Rogue
something?
One.
Rogue One, yeah, exactly.
Hey,
Rogue
insane.
One is one of the best movies I've seen
Yep.
in the whole Star Wars
Easy, yeah.
movie lineup. To be honest,
Well, the whole thing is that you never have a premise of a movie where everyone survives and happily ever after. That is the focus of that is that they get the message through to the rebels, right, and then they all die. They're all trapped there and they all die.
no one lives happily.
Nope,
ever after.
no one lives happily ever after, and they all die. And even Saw Gerrera's guys all die, and everybody there.
I just thought it was a really good explanation on how that map,
absolutely,
the plans come to the
rebel.
rebels.
Yep.
And yet that movie's 40 years
Yeah.
prior,
Yeah.
and it's just an incredible bloody movie. And then you see Princess Leia young,
Yeah.
and
One of the best scenes in Star Wars ever.
the Darth Vader comes bowling out with that bloody red lightsaber just
Yeah.
glowing up. Looks incredible.
And he WhatsApps everyone in the whole freaking corridor. He gets through, and that dude's like, it's actually way more violent than the original movie.
Yeah.
Um,
And that Darth Vader scene was like his payoff for
Yeah.
like 40 years worth of fans, like being able to see that time where he just lets go or unleashes and actually see how
yeah. A
how
small
much of a
amount of his
badass
power,
he
right?
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he is
because he never
badass,
really
yeah.
gets that in a live action
Yeah.
experience.
Well, it's the whole reason I could never really get into Kylo Ren is he never had that unleashed kind of rage, not rage I suppose, but unreleased sort of energy that Darth Vader had. And Darth Vader will always be my number one Sith. He's what I've known since I've watched it. I've watched 3 movies with him in it. At the beginning of sort of me getting into Star Wars, and he'll just always be my number one. I mean, a lot of people like Darth Maul and everything else, and there's a lot of other Siths, but he's my number one. That iconic.
Yeah, but is your generation?
Oh, from my generation, yeah, absolutely,
That's
yeah.
the thing is, it
Yeah.
is a generational. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
the 3 movies, Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi
yeah.
will always be
Yeah.
my set of 3
Yeah.
movies, and as hard as I try to look at the other ones, I'm never going to get my head around
Yeah.
it. Apart from Rogue One, but then it does lead into
Yeah.
my Star Wars.
And
That's
he's
why I
even
love it so
more
much.
amazing at the end of that. Like, it's
Yeah.
insanely good. But, it's certainly... It's so easy to go onto the other subjects of Star Wars and try and stay on it. But we'll lead back into something else. Like, if you're going back into comicdom or sort of pop culture and stuff like this, if you ever go to a meeting, doesn't matter anywhere in the world where you go, cosplay's massive now. Cosplay's everywhere, right? Cosplay is a major part of having a Comic-Con or a pop culture event. And I'll tell you what now, it shows how much of an influence Star Wars is, that anywhere you go, your cosplay will be Star Wars related. Probably 60 to 70% of your cosplay is going to be Star Wars.
Yep, easy.
A huge part of it will be Spider-Man and Spider-Gwen and everything else because it's not so hard to do cosplay in that, but Star Wars is massive. And you've been part of 501st as well, the 501st.
Yeah. So some friends of mine, we had a stall at Armageddon over the course of a year. We sort of did all the major ones, and every time we were there, we saw the 501st guys from each different city. And I ran into Andy in Christchurch, and I was just smitten. He was wearing the nicest looking sand trooper costume, beautifully weathered, backpack, pauldron,
orange shoulder pad,
big gun. I was just like, oh my gosh, that's my wet dream right there. I need to talk to this guy. So I spent the next 2 days not selling t-shirts and just hanging out with this guy and talking to him.
Yeah.
And then over the course of the next couple of years, I did my research, joined the team, and made the plunge, ordered some armor.
Yeah.
I've got a New Hope Stormtrooper.
Yeah.
Ties in well. It spent way too long fitting it, putting it together, taking it apart, put it back on.
Yeah.
And spent a good couple of years really focused on doing that, and We did several Armageddons. Did the Santa Parade that year. The year I had my armor, and man, that was
Auckland.
Yeah, Auckland Santa Parade. You know, like everyone's like, oh, it must be hot in that thing, but it's only like 2 mil worth of plastic between you and the sidewalk or the wind or whatever.
Yeah.
You're wearing like a compression suit underneath, so it's it's supposed to wick away the moisture and keep you warm, but you're going down a windy place. You're still feeling it, and but man, the smiles of people, like
how
visibility is terrible. Like it's like less than a pair of binoculars through those things. So
is that right?
Yeah, you can't see anything. But you can see someone just look at you from across the street, run up and be like, photo, and you're like, yep, let's do it.
Yeah.
And you made their day. I'm smiling underneath, and most of the time we're doing it for charity. So it's it's good
which
for
is a
everybody.
massive part of it, right? It's when you can associate Star Wars, the pop culture stuff, the event it is itself, with raising money for such a great cause and stuff. It's I mean, how does it feel to wear the suit too? When you're wearing the suit, you must feel bulletproof and 7 foot tall,
you put on that character straight away, and which is the appeal for me with the Stormtrooper was it's great looking character, but you get a helmet. Like all the good guys don't get helmets.
No.
So as soon as you put the helmet on, you can, there's an element of role play in that.
Sense of not being recognised.
Absolutely.
You can step into a second skin.
You can be different, right? You can be outside of your normal character, and you can be more. I don't know. You can be more the character of a stormtrooper, right? You can be kind of evil. You can be sinister. You can be all these things, and no one knows who it is.
Yeah. And one of my favourite things to do at the con was to play statue and just stand next to the desk, or just find a spot with a wall behind me and just stand there. And just wait and see how many people come up and try and touch you, or think, is that a real guy? Or and then just wait for them to about to leave, and then just move at them, or jump at them, or scream, or whatever, and they lose it, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I thought there was a statue," and it's like, best feeling ever. You all got a smile on the inside.
Well, it's even cool when you're like a stormtrooper, say, and someone comes along and they're dressed as Rey, or they're dressed as Obi-Wan, or they're dressed as Luke, or they're dressed as Han Solo, or Chewie, and there's a dude who does Fire First. I don't know if he's with Fire First or not, but he always dresses up in Chewie. He's a really big guy.
Yeah. Yep.
I can't remember what his bloody name is. I'd love to remember, but he was
about
just
7 foot.
he's tall, man.
Life,
He's got the bandolier is like, to me, is movie accurate, and like the Chewie outfit is movie. He looks amazing. He does.
I've actually got a photo of him with your cousin actually.
Oh, with Clint. Yeah. So if you're gonna look at how far-reaching Star Wars is, you look at cosplay now. They're cosplaying people from the 70s, right? Essentially, if you see us Han Solo,
that's right.
It's Han. It's not Han from like the latest movies. It's Han from the original trilogy. It's Luke Skywalker from the original trilogy. It's Princess Leia Organa from the original trilogy.
Yep.
And even you see it, what did we see at Terra? As a little kid dressed as Princess Leia, or
yeah,
her and her mum are both dressed as Princess Leia, right?
Yeah, well, her mum was dressed as the original Princess Leia.
Yeah,
with the buns
Princess
up
Leia Organa.
And I think it was just a couple of
Yeah.
white sheets and
But it was actually it was insanely good.
It was
like,
very well done.
considering how what she'd used. You're like, oh
Yeah.
really? Holy! But like you see anyone dressed as someone from Star Wars, you do get New Order stormtroopers and stuff like this, but just quite often you get Han, you get Leia, you get
Instantly
Luke,
recognisable as well.
and they're always original trilogy. That's what always sticks with me. They're always original trilogy. When you get Han Solo, it's that blue vest, the tan pants.
I've never seen
white
Jar
shirt.
Jar being cosplayed.
Ooh, yeah,
It's a deep cut.
Yeah. It's probably never going to happen. Hopefully, it never happens.
But the feeling you get when you see someone, a really good costume, or who really exemplify that character, is probably the same feeling that person has when they put it on. They're like, they're like, I just love it. I just the feeling and the nostalgia, or just the role play part of it.
Yeah.
Some people just like to be that character for a day.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all give and take too. Like it takes an audience to really bring out.
Because it actually takes a lot of effort to become part of that 501st, doesn't it? It's not.
It does. It's not just a blind
It's
join.
not just get a suit and chuck it on. You have to actually be quite specific on what you're actually
Yeah, so it started in the States, and from the very beginning they wanted to be the best Star Wars costuming group, sort of pre-cosplay, if you call it that. And so they did it very structured, and they made a bunch of rules and regulations as part of their charter. I think also a lot of it had to do with their relationship to Lucasfilm as well, is that they were able to use their characters to do stuff without infringing on their intellectual property in some respect.
Yeah.
So a lot of it has to do with, you know, not taking a paid performance. A lot of it has to go. It all has to go to charity, unless it's an organised event through a license holder, that sort of thing. But yeah, you're right, and you have to be accurate. It has to be an accurate portrayal of that character, whether it's finding the right armor, making it yourself. I mean, most of it started off with people making their own stuff or continuing to make it, their own stuff. But it just has to look like the character you're trying to portray.
But somebody's there to sign it off, is there?
Yeah, so there, in each sort of territory there is a group of people in sort of a structure of a leader and different other positions, and someone's job is to, you apply, you supply the photos, someone has to go through the process of looking it over and making sure it meets standards.
This is interesting because there'll be a lot of people actually probably not listening to our podcast, but there'll be a lot of people, if they do listen to it and they do want to join 501st, this is an incredible insight. Because it could be quite daunting, right? If you don't know how to join and no one's told you and you're like, I really want to be a stormtrooper and hang with these dudes, because you're hanging with the guys who have the same interest. You're hanging with people that want to have the same historically accurate uniform. If you want to be because Stormtrooper, I mean, it's an iconic figure, right? And if you want to be part of that, you telling these people now is actually a massive insight. You know?
Yeah, I mean, just like every other form of collecting or detail work, there are people called rivet counters in the community. Mm-hmm. So there are certain details that you can get just right by following certain steps, even to the point where you think that all the stuff was made in England in the 70s. Some of the hardware was only available during that time period, so you have to find, if you want to be 100% accurate, you have to find a certain type of screw or rivet or belt or elastic, just to get that that accuracy. Not to mention stuff that's applied just for the filmmaking part of it, like Stormtrooper helmet is made up of lots of elements, but the breathing apparatus on the front are mic tips from the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
Other parts are like from faucets, taps.
So they are trying to replicate a prop.
Yeah, definitely.
The movie prop. They're actually trying to replicate that.
And even one of the details is it can't be too well painted or too well stickered. Like, it has to be kind of... If you're going for that...
Looks like to be like battle worn or like...
more so it was painted.
Yeah,
it was painted hand painted in a shop in the 70s, and it needed to look good at 4 feet, but not at 2 feet. Yeah. So you can kind of
get away
fudge
with
some of these details. Some of these you really need.
It's something that it's a movie prop that you get 20 people turn up on the day, and it's going to fit every single one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's all identical. Yeah, it's all direct from that movie.
Yeah. And a lot of this stuff is, well, pretty much all of it's online. If you go to an event and you see these dudes, go and talk to them, because a lot of people don't talk to them. They just want to take their photo and leave. But if you're interested, that's the best way to get into it. The global group is the 501st. The local group in New Zealand is the Outpost 42. But yeah, they're great bunch of people.
Oh, they're brilliant. But every time you go there, they're the most photoed people, I would say, in Armageddon. There wouldn't be anyone else more photoed than Outpost 42, was it? There wouldn't be anyone more photoed than them. And I'll tell you what, if you are into Star Wars and you want to get into the cosplay type thing, that's fine. But if you want to go even next level, then Outpost 42, man.
And the few people I have talked to them on the days when they're there, you'll never meet a more passionate group.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And even the people that go along with them, like you got the dude who's Chewie, you've got a few other guys like Imperial Guards, you've got a few Jedis that turn up that are cosplaying stuff as well. There's a lot of people that put a lot of effort in there.
That's true. I should actually explain as well. The Outpost 42 is just for the Imperial costumes, so it's just the Stormtroopers, anything in the Imperial Navy, the Army. The Rebel Legion looks after all the Rebel characters, pilots, good guys, that sort of thing. I think the local one is the Naboo Outpost, but it's all Rebel Legion if you were to look for that. Yep. And then, coming back to the details, there are characters who are probably more obscure for a mainstream audience, and for some people, those are the ones that you want to replicate because there might be 2 or 3 in the world, or it might be your favorite character.
Yeah.
Well, I have seen that. Yeah, there is call-outs for certain characters.
Yeah.
Because they want to complete, the army, is it?
Yeah.
So those ones where those unusual characters, which just sort of don't stand out to us as much, they're the ones they want people to get in there and actually fill the roles for.
In terms of like bringing it back to toys, like the droids were probably my favorite to look at because you're like, those don't exist in real world, but when you see one in real life, like there's the R2 Builders Club or the Droid Builders Clubs. There are a few R2-D2s in the country that are remote controlled, aluminium, wood, like beautiful pieces of work. And that's another portion of the community as well. There are people who just do clones. There's quite a big clone contingent in New Zealand because that relationship of Temuera Morrison being Jango Fett.
Yeah.
A lot of people look like him in New Zealand. A lot of them have joined the Clone Trooper group, and that's just something that is uniquely New Zealand, which we can really grab onto because not other places can do that.
I've only really seen you guys those guys at the Armageddons and comic conventions, but you guys must be meeting up more often than that, or
a lot of them will do. If there are new members, they will often do like an armor building party, so they might invite everyone around and just like help everybody out, or fixing things or touching up, that sort of thing. But most of the charity work is done locally by the local teams, and it could be going to hospitals.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Very sick people, children.
Starship Hospital.
Starship. Every year there's the Ronald McDonald House special Christmas party. That's a great one as well. Even sometimes just collecting for SPCA, or there could be just local activity in your area.
I suppose even when you get, like, say, a new movie release, you might do a thing for that, right?
Yeah, there's definitely been lots of activity around movies, which has been pretty cool, really. Like, to just go to the movie and see these characters standing in front of you is a pretty big deal. Yeah. Okay,
so Star Wars as a whole, definitely for me, it was probably the Kickstarter for me to be kickstarted my imagination. It really kickstarted my pop culture journey as it's sort of played out. Obviously for you, Star Wars has played a big part in how you've collected, or how you've
like it is quite all encompassing, really. My wife always says it's my first love. I haven't agreed with her yet, but that's definitely been a through line throughout most of my life, is my love of Star Wars, or at least what that has given me in terms of other avenues, or just pop culture in general.
Have you found there's a universal language though between people of your age?
Yeah, pretty much. There's a lot of commonalities that I find in other people that I interact with, or I have contact with. I can be like throw out a little reference here and there, and see
they know,
right?
Come
back.
Yeah, they know. Because I don't know, I can't speak for Vaughan, but for me it's the same, right? I know people who I grew up with, and even a couple of years older or a couple of years younger, and they'll know Star Wars, they know Empire, they know Return of the Jedi, and even though they've never followed it through since they were a kid, they've moved on, right, and become adults, and they do adult things. And I haven't. I've just regressed back to it after I've sort of got a family. But I'm the same as you, right? People know it, they understand it, they know memes, they know, I am your father, or you're not my father, or whatever. There's a lot of memes, there's a lot of GIFs and stuff like this that are related to Star Wars, and even people of my kids' generation will see it and go, "Oh, that's hilarious." They don't want to know why, but they know that that's a meme, it's a reference, and they understand it, right? So for you, Vaughan, the same thing. You have, not that it's influenced your life, but it's certainly kept you into pop culture, knowing that what you've watched is given you an interest, in Star Wars and anything related to that era, G.I. Joe and everything else. It's like, it's cool when you're a kid, but you come back to it because it gives you so much enjoyment. I don't know, or pleasure.
I can honestly, anytime I watch Star Wars, it's like being 6 years old again. It really is. It also just reminds me of collecting the cards. I've got a full
Oh,
collection
yeah.
of Return of the Jedi
Yeah.
cards
Oh,
at home.
nice.
Yeah, I'm jealous as shit.
And that
yeah.
just reminds me of being at primary school, just swapping.
Swapping, yeah.
It was, I'll give you a glint for that bloody Darth Vader, marbles,
Yeah.
marbles for a bloody
For a collectible
Return
card,
of the
yeah.
Jedi cards,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
just, they were the two loves when I was a kid. So every time it comes up, and everyone knows those characters. I mean, like you say, my kids know Star Wars, your kids know
Yeah,
Star
yeah.
Wars. I bet your kids love Star
Well,
Wars.
yeah, my challenge right now is trying to get them into it without pushing.
Forcing it.
Yeah.
And like, I'm finding Lego's a good way of doing it right
Oh,
now.
man,
Because
yeah.
he can
Absolutely.
play and build and sort
Such
of
good sets,
get
yeah.
used to them without knowing the bigger story.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, make that starship a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Just about there, mate.
yeah.
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 But
No,
yeah,
no,
of
you can't
course.
go to bed yet. You complete this bloody X-wing.
But yeah, so it's actually something that definitely has grown up with me, and now has grown up with my kids as well. I mean, my lounge has a picture of Princess Leia,
Yeah, it's
full
pretty
size
sweet, yeah.
wall
Nice.
placement in the lounge, and it's just something that I don't think I'll ever grow out of, because it was one of my first loves as a movie and as pop culture. And
I don't say it's often about a movie, and I agree with that. I don't say it's often about a movie, but if you watch Star Wars or Empire or Return of the Jedi, even in 30 years' time, I think you'd still go, has all the elements of a really good story. You'd look at it and go, this is telling an excellent story, and even the graphics themselves, yeah, they might be outdated at that stage in 30 years' time, but you still go, this is pretty damn modern
yeah, but I can
technology
still
for that
watch
age.
it and actually believe it. Like
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think the special effects are that terrible that it takes you.
No, they're
out.
not. They're
There's
not
no
at all.
claymation in it. Like
No,
you
not at all.
or it's actually amazing what they got away with.
Except probably the
so early
Rancor.
on.
Rancor's a little bit claymation, but otherwise pretty good. Well, Sarlacc Pit didn't need much animation. It was pretty terrifying. I wouldn't want 1,000 years being digested. You know.
I'd forgotten about the Rancor. That was pretty terribly done, wasn't it?
But in saying that, that was most cutting edge technology at the time. I mean, you've watched Jason and the Argonauts. That's pretty bad, and that was around the same time, I think, from memory. And Star Wars is way better than that.
Yeah, it is. It's
Honestly.
incredible what they got away with.
Okay, so we can all agree that Star Wars has probably shaped us in some way or form, and probably for many other people, even the people listening to this, Star Wars, among other things, was a good jumping off point as a kid. So, thanks for listening to us today on our podcast, episode 2, which was Star Wars, with my mate Hadley,
Thank you very much.
Vaughnie,
Thank you.
and Bram, and keep your ears peeled for next week. We're going to be doing Symbiote Spider-Man and Venom and the other symbiotes. Alright, so thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. Cheers. Goodbye.